You believe the greatest threat to our world is malice, the calculated evil of scheming minds. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who stared into the very abyss of human darkness, uncovered a far more insidious, more terrifying enemy. A peculiar, pervasive kind of stupidity. What if his forbidden ideas, born from unbearable experience, reveal how this chosen blindness, not overt evil, truly paves the road to ruin? Are you prepared to unmask its devastating power? We often dismiss stupidity as mere lack of intellect, a harmless ignorance that can be corrected with facts, with education. But Bonhoeffer saw something else, something far more chilling. He saw a stupidity that is not an intellectual deficit, but a moral one, a willing surrender of independent thought, a flight from personal responsibility, often induced by the overwhelming pressure of power or the seductive slogans of the crowd. This is not a mind that cannot think, but one that tragically, dangerously, will not. Why then are these insights, this stark unmasking of stupidity's true nature, so often considered forbidden, or at least deeply uncomfortable to confront? Perhaps because Bonhoeffer's lens doesn't just focus on distant tyrants or obvious villains. It forces us to look closer to home, at the subtle ways this collective dimming of conscience can take root within seemingly ordinary communities, even within ourselves, when we allow our critical faculties to be lulled to sleep by power, by fear, or by the intoxicating comfort of belonging. And here lies its terrifying strength, the reason Bonhoeffer deemed this stupidity more dangerous than outright malice. Malice, he knew, can be exposed, protested, fought with reason, with evidence, with moral courage. But this particular brand of stupidity, this willed refusal to see, is often utterly deaf to facts, impervious to argument, hostile to any truth that challenges its self-imposed blindness. It becomes a closed system, a fortress against reason itself, and it is within such fortresses that the greatest horrors are often incubated. Before we delve into Dietrich Bonhoeffer's profound and challenging understanding of how to recognize this potent, dangerous force, how to unmask its many disguises, and why his clear-sighted words were, and perhaps still are, so profoundly unsettling to the status quo, pause and reflect. When have you personally encountered a stubborn, collective blindness, a situation where facts and reason seem to shatter against a wall of unthinking conviction? Share that unsettling memory, that moment of powerless frustration in the comments below. For recognizing this insidious foe is the very first step to disarming its chilling power in our world and in our own lives. The air you breathe, the words you hear, the very thoughts you believe are your own, what if they are subtly seeded with a danger far greater, far more insidious than overt malice? Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who lived and died confronting the darkest forces of his time, pointed to a peculiar kind of stupidity, not as a lack of intelligence, but as a profound moral and spiritual failure, a chosen blindness that allows evil to flourish. You've sensed it, haven't you? That chilling moment when reason shatters against a wall of unthinking conviction, when common sense seems to evaporate in the heat of a crowd, leaving you to wonder if the very fabric of reality is coming undone. This is not the simple ignorance of a child, easily corrected with a gentle explanation. No, the stupidity Bonhoeffer unmasked is a more stubborn, more dangerous beast. It is the mind that has willingly surrendered its power to think for itself, that has handed over its judgment to an external authority, to a captivating slogan, to the intoxicating feeling of belonging to something powerful, something that promises easy answers in a complicated world. It is the person who, when confronted with facts that contradict their adopted beliefs, does not question the beliefs, but attacks the facts or the messenger. Have you ever felt the bewildering frustration of trying to reason with such a mind? Consider the everyday breeding grounds for this peculiar blindness, the endless echo chambers where dissenting voices are silenced, the charismatic figures who demand unquestioning loyalty, the subtle pressures to conform that make independent thought feel like a betrayal, even a danger. We tell ourselves we are immune, that we are too smart, too aware to fall into such traps. But Bonhoeffer's forbidden ideas suggest that this very confidence can be our undoing, for this stupidity often infects not the intellectually weak, but those who have allowed their inner moral compass to be demagnetized by the powerful currents of their time. The pain of recognizing this phenomenon is not just intellectual, it is a deep, visceral ache. It's the pain of seeing people you care about, or even whole communities, seemingly lose their capacity for empathy, for critical thought, for basic human decency, all in service of some rigid, unexamined dogma. It's the silent horror of watching truth become irrelevant, a mere inconvenience to be swept aside by the force of collective emotion or the decree of an accepted power. This is the ground upon which great evils take root, not always through outright villainy, but through the cultivated, applauded stupidity of the many. This journey into Bonhoeffer's stark and urgent wisdom is not meant to be comfortable. It is meant to shake you, to provoke you, to make you question the very air you breathe. For if this dangerous stupidity is indeed a moral failing, a surrender of our God-given capacity for reason and responsibility, then understanding its mechanics, its seductive allure, and its devastating consequences is not just an academic exercise. It is a vital, urgent necessity for anyone who wishes to live a life of integrity, of meaning, and of true, courageous humanity in a world that so often seems determined to crush it. Let us delve deeper now into the anatomy of this closed mind, this state of being that Bonhoeffer found so perilous. How does a thinking, feeling human being arrive at a place where they willingly shut down their own capacity for independent judgment? It often begins with the allure of power, not necessarily power they wield themselves, but power they can align with, power that promises certainty, belonging, and perhaps even a share of its spoils. In the presence of overwhelming external force, or the intoxicating promise of it, the individual's inner world can begin to feel small, insignificant, and the temptation to merge with that larger power, to adopt its views wholesale, becomes immense. This surrender of inner autonomy is rarely a dramatic one-time event. It is more often a slow erosion, a series of small compromises, a gradual learning to ignore the nagging voice of one's own conscience, the quiet questions of one's own reason. Each unquestioned slogan, each unexamined assumption, each decision to remain silent in the face of something intuitively wrong, hardens the shell around the mind, making it less and less receptive to any truth that doesn't fit the prescribed narrative. Do you recognize this subtle process, this almost imperceptible drift into unthinking agreement? And once the mind is closed in this way, genuine dialogue becomes impossible. Facts, evidence, reasoned arguments, they simply bounce off or are twisted to fit the existing rigid framework. The stupid person, in Bonhoeffer's sense, is not interested in learning or understanding. They are interested only in affirming what they have already decided or what they have been told is true. Their pronouncements are often delivered with absolute certainty, precisely because they are untroubled by the complexities, the nuances, the inconvenient contradictions that a truly thinking mind must grapple with. This is not merely an intellectual failing. It is a profound moral one. For to refuse to think, to refuse to question, to refuse to engage with reality as it is, rather than as one wishes it to be or is told it is to abdicate one's responsibility as a human being. It is to become a mere instrument, a tool, easily wielded by those who understand how to manipulate this particular brand of stupidity for their own ends. And the uncomfortable, forbidden truth Bonhoeffer forces us to confront is that this vulnerability lies not just in them, the obvious culprits, but potentially within each of us, under the right, or rather, the wrong set of circumstances. The tragedy is that the person caught in this state often feels not stupid, but enlightened, empowered, part of something vital and important. They have exchanged the difficult freedom of individual thought for the comforting certainty of group identity, the heavy burden of personal responsibility for the easy righteousness of a shared cause, however ill-conceived. And it is this very self-satisfaction, this imperviousness to doubt, that makes this kind of stupidity such a formidable and dangerous opponent to truth, to justice, and to love. Now, let us consider how this individual surrender of thought metastasizes into a collective force, a social or political tide that can sweep away reason, compassion, and even the most basic decencies. Bonhoeffer witnessed firsthand how this stupidity, when it grips a group, a nation, can become an almost unstoppable power, capable of truly monstrous acts. It is not simply a collection of individual closed minds, but a new, emergent entity with its own dark momentum, its own terrifying logic. Within such a group, independent thought becomes not just unwelcome, but actively dangerous. The pressure to conform, to echo the approved slogans, to demonstrate unwavering loyalty is immense. Those who dare to question, to offer a different perspective, are quickly labeled as enemies, as traitors, as threats to the sacred unity of the group. And so, even those who might harbor private doubts learn to remain silent, their silence further empowering the collective stupidity, creating a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle. Have you ever felt that chilling pressure to stay quiet, even when your heart knew something was deeply wrong? This collective stupidity thrives on simplification, on reducing the beautiful, messy complexity of life to a few crude, black and white categories. Good versus evil, us versus them, patriot versus traitor. Nuance is its enemy. Empathy for the other is seen as weakness. Critical thinking is condemned as negativity or disloyalty. The world is flattened, drained of its richness, and remade in the image of a few easily digestible, emotionally charged slogans. This is how the ground is prepared for ideologies that deny our shared humanity. And this is why, as Bonhoeffer so tragically observed, reason alone often proves powerless against this tide. You cannot argue with a slogan. You cannot debate with a closed mind that has already decided what is true. You cannot present facts to those who have chosen to live in a world of convenient fictions. The battle against this kind of stupidity is not primarily an intellectual one. It is a moral and spiritual one, a struggle for the soul itself, for the very capacity to recognize and respond to truth. The weight of this realization can feel almost unbearable. To see how easily human beings, in groups, can surrender their best selves, their capacity for reason and compassion, to the allure of simplistic narratives and the intoxication of collective power, is a profoundly disillusioning experience. It can make one feel helpless, alone, a small voice crying out in a wilderness of unreason. Yet, it is precisely in these moments Bonhoeffer would remind us that the call to responsible thought and courageous action becomes most urgent, most necessary. Why then are these insights from Bonhoeffer, this unsparing diagnosis of stupidity's true danger, so often felt to be forbidden, or at least so deeply unsettling that we instinctively shy away from them? It is not merely because they paint a dark picture of human potential, but because they hold up a mirror that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about our own communities, about the very societies we inhabit and often take for granted. One of the hardest truths is that this dangerous stupidity is not always out there, a problem of other people, other groups, other times. It is a latent possibility within each human heart, a vulnerability we all share, given the right combination of external pressure and internal weakness. To truly absorb Bonhoeffer's warning means to acknowledge our own capacity to be swayed, to be silenced, to choose comfort over courage, to surrender our thinking to a seemingly powerful or attractive force. This kind of self-reflection is rarely pleasant. It is often profoundly painful. Furthermore, these ideas are forbidden in the sense that they directly challenge those who wield power by cultivating or exploiting this very stupidity. Demagogues, tyrants, manipulators of all stripes, their reign often depends on a populace that is unthinking, easily led, and emotionally reactive. To expose the mechanics of this induced stupidity, to encourage critical thought and moral autonomy, is to strike at the very foundations of their power. And those who hold such power rarely welcome such scrutiny. Indeed, they often actively suppress it. There is also the profound challenge Bonhoeffer's understanding lays at our feet. If this stupidity is a moral failing, a surrender of responsibility, then simply diagnosing it from a safe distance is not enough. His life and his death testify to the belief that true understanding demands a response, an engagement, a willingness to act, even at great personal cost. This is the call to costly grace, not the cheap grace that offers comfort without transformation, words without deeds. Such a call to action is often far more than we feel prepared to answer. And finally, it is perhaps easier, more comforting, to believe that those who perpetrate or enable terrible things are simply misinformed, misguided, or intellectually lacking. It allows us to maintain a sense of superiority, a belief that if only they knew better, they would do better. Bonhoeffer strips away this comforting illusion, forcing us to confront the more disturbing possibility that people can and do willingly choose to abandon reason, to embrace falsehoods, to participate in collective delusion, not because they don't know better, but because on some deep level they have chosen not to. This is a harder, more tragic truth to bear. The darkness here is not just the existence of this stupidity, but the unsettling ease with which it can take root, the way it can masquerade as strength or virtue, and the profound difficulty of awakening those who have succumbed to its spell. Yet it is only by daring to look into this darkness, as Bonhoeffer did, that we can begin to understand how to cultivate the light of true discernment, of moral courage, of responsible freedom, both within ourselves and in the world around us. So how do we begin to unmask this insidious force, to resist its contagion, to cultivate within ourselves and our communities the strength of mind and spirit that Bonhoeffer saw as the only true antidote? It begins not with grand pronouncements or ambitious programs, but with the quiet, courageous work of inner freedom, with the unwavering commitment to think for ourselves, even when it is unpopular, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it feels dangerous. This means actively cultivating a spirit of critical inquiry, a willingness to question assumptions, especially our own most cherished ones. It means seeking out diverse perspectives, engaging with those who think differently, and resisting the seductive pull of echo chambers that merely affirm what we already believe. Bonhoeffer understood that truth is often found not in comfortable certainties, but in the challenging, dynamic tension of differing viewpoints, wrestled with honestly and openly. It also means fostering what he called responsible action. This is not reckless impulsiveness, nor is it passive disapproval. It is action rooted in a deep ethical awareness, a clear-sighted understanding of the situation, and a willingness to bear the consequences of one's choices. It is about asking not just what is happening, but what is the right thing for me to do in this moment, given what I understand to be true and just. This is where the now of our theme becomes a constant, lived reality. The power of authentic community, as Bonhoeffer experienced even in the darkest of times, cannot be overstated. Finding and nurturing connections with other individuals who are committed to seeking truth, to thinking critically, and to acting responsibly creates islands of sanity and strength in a world that can often feel overwhelmed by unreason. In such communities, courage is contagious, insight is sharpened, and hope is kept alive. Are you actively seeking or creating such spaces in your own life? Ultimately, the resistance to this dangerous stupidity is a profoundly spiritual act. It is rooted in a deep reverence for truth, a commitment to love even those caught in delusion, and an unwavering faith in the human capacity for moral awakening, however deeply it may be buried. It is about choosing to be a bearer of light in a world that often seems to prefer the shadows, to be a voice of reason when others scream slogans, to be a presence of compassion when hatred is so much easier. This is the difficult yet beautiful path Bonhoeffer calls us to, the path of unmasking illusion and embracing the costly yet liberating call of our true humanity. And so, we draw near the close of this unsettling yet vital exploration into the heart of what Dietrich Bonhoeffer called stupidity's true danger, a journey that perhaps leaves you with more questions than answers, but also with a new, more piercing clarity. The forbidden ideas he unveiled were not meant to condemn, but to awaken, to show us how easily the human spirit can surrender its most precious gift of thought and moral discernment, and how urgently we must guard against this silent, pervasive threat. May the echo of this understanding resonate within you long after the noise of the world attempts to reclaim your attention. This is not about a feeling of superiority over those who seem caught in unreason, but a profound, humbling awareness of our shared human vulnerability and the immense personal responsibility that comes with sight. The path to resisting this insidious dimming of the soul is not found in loud pronouncements, but in the quiet, courageous cultivation of your own inner clarity, your own unwavering commitment to truth. Carry this image with you as a small, steady flame in often darkening times, in a world easily dimmed by the shadows of unthinking conformity, a single mind awake, a single heart that refuses to surrender its conscience, becomes a lighthouse of enduring truth. Your individual capacity for clear thought, for moral courage, for responsible action is more powerful than you might believe, a vital spark against the encroaching night. This vigilance, this commitment to unmasking stupidity's subtle deceptions, both in the world and within ourselves, is not a task completed, but a way of life embraced. It is the ongoing, often difficult practice of choosing awareness over apathy, integrity over ease, compassion over contempt. Bonhoeffer's life teaches us that such a path demands courage, but it is the only path that leads to a truly human, truly meaningful existence, a life lived in service of what is good and true. If these profound and challenging insights have stirred something deep within you, a call to a more conscious, more responsible way of being, then let us continue to explore these vital questions together. Subscribe and join a community dedicated to seeking truth, even when it is uncomfortable. Share in the comments below one small way you intend to nurture your own inner lighthouse. One way you will strive to resist the pull of unthinking conformity in your daily life. And if this message might awaken another soul, share this journey, for the light of awareness grows stronger and more resilient when it is shared among many.